The Song of Wigu. Chapter 1. The Child of Mists. The valley was a place wrapped in quiet mystery. Each morning, the mountains exhaled soft ribbons of mist, curling down into the fields, wrapping the cottages and trees as if the world were being gently hidden and revealed again. In that valley lived a child named Wigu. Nobody could say quite when Wigu had been born, nor whose family they belonged to. Some claimed they had always been there, appearing one day out of the fog, their hair glimmering faintly like twilight, their eyes full of shadows and stars. Others whispered that Wigu was half-spirit, born of the mountain's breath itself. Whatever the truth, Wigu grew among the villagers like a wandering note in a song no one could finish. They were quiet, often seen drifting through fields or walking along paths that led nowhere. Children would follow Wigu sometimes, giggling and daring each other to ask what they were looking for. But when Wigu turned their eyes, the children always fell silent. It wasn't fear, it was something stranger. Wigu's gaze seemed to look beyond the world. While others saw only a bird in the sky, Wigu saw the trace of its wings shimmering like ink on the wind. Where others saw snow on the frozen river, Wigu saw silver fish flickering beneath the ice, as though winter were just a thin sheet of glass. And at night, when stars trembled in the black sky, Wigu would lie awake and listen, saying softly, "They're whispering tonight. Do you hear them?" The villagers shook their heads and went on with their chores. But sometimes, when the mist was especially heavy, they shivered, half expecting Wigu's strange visions to be true. One autumn evening, as the last leaves fell and the air sharpened with cold, the village elder called the people together by the fire. The elder was a stooped figure, with lines in their face as deep as riverbeds. They told a story of the old days, before the valley was gentle, when the mountains burned with fire. Wigu listened closely, their twilight hair glowing in the firelight. The elder spoke of a great serpent of stone and flame, who coiled beneath the earth, shaping rivers and carving valleys. The Ash-Serpent, the elder croaked, once guarded this land. But when people forgot its name, it sank into sleep, buried deep below the mountain. Forgotten things do not die, they only wait. The villagers murmured uneasily, but the elder only stared into the fire, as though seeing something far away. Wigu felt their skin prickle. They had dreamed of such a serpent before, its breath like smoke, its scales glowing like embered rock. They thought of the stars' whispers, the strange tremors they had felt in the soil beneath their feet. That night, as the village fell into sleep, Wigu wandered alone into the mist. The moon hung low, and the wind carried faint murmurs that only Wigu could hear. They closed their eyes and whispered back, "What is it you want me to see?" And far beneath the mountain, something stirred. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss more eerie and fascinating tales. The Song of Wigu. Chapter 2. Whispers of the Stars. The nights grew colder, and winter pressed its hands over the valley. Frost traced silver vines across the windows, and the rivers froze so still that the moonlight looked like it had been painted on glass. The villagers hurried about their work, gathering wood, patching roofs, preparing for the long snows. But Wigu lingered in places where the cold was sharpest. They would climb the small hill behind the cottages, wrap themselves in a woolen cloak, and lie flat on the frozen grass to stare at the sky. The stars were brighter in winter. They glittered like shards of broken glass scattered across the heavens. To most people, stars were just lights, distant, eternal, beautiful but unreachable. Yet to Wigu, the stars were voices. On that hill, Wigu listened. And when the wind fell still, they heard it, a faint murmur, like many voices speaking at once, drifting down through the cold. The words were not clear, but the sound carried a rhythm, a warning, as though the sky itself trembled with unease. Forgotten, forgotten, forgotten. The whisper seemed to repeat. Wigu pressed their palm against the frozen earth. Beneath their hand, they felt a faint warmth, pulsing like a heartbeat. The stars above, the warmth below, it was all connected. Wigu understood only one thing for certain: something was waking. The next day, Wigu tried to speak of this to the villagers. They stood near the well, watching women draw water, men mend fences, and children chase each other through the snow. "The stars are worried," Wigu said quietly. The villagers chuckled. One man ruffled Wigu's hair, saying, "Stars don't worry, child." They're too far away to care for us. But Wigu shook their head. They remember things we've forgotten. They're telling me something beneath us stirs. The villagers exchanged glances. They loved Wigu in the way people love a harmless oddity, but few took their words seriously. They whispered to one another, strange child, dreamy child, spirit child. Only the elder looked at Wigu with a shadow of concern. What do you mean, stirring? The elder asked. Wigu hesitated, then answered, I think the Ash-Serpent dreams restlessly. And dreams, when they grow strong enough, can break into the world. The elder's lined face grew pale. But they only said, best keep such thoughts quiet, Wigu. Not all things should be spoken aloud. That night, the ground trembled faintly. Just once, like a giant turning in its sleep. Few villagers noticed. But Wigu, lying awake with eyes open to the ceiling beams, felt the vibration deep in their bones. They whispered to the dark, I hear you. I won't let you be forgotten. And in reply, from somewhere beneath the mountain, came the faintest echo like the hiss of breath over embers. Chapter 3, The Forgotten Serpent. Snow thickened in the valley, falling for days without pause. The roofs sagged under its weight, paths became narrow tunnels, and even the strongest men moved with the heaviness of winter pressing on their backs. In the evenings, the villagers gathered in the longhouse around the fire. Flames snapped and hissed, throwing gold against the wooden walls. Children played with carved toys while the elders told stories to pass the long nights. It was during one such night that the elder began to speak again of the serpent. The Ash-Serpent, the elder said, voice low and steady, was no monster when it first came to the valley. It was a guardian. Its fire warmed the soil, made the ground fertile, and carved rivers through stone. Without it, we might never have had this valley at all. The children leaned closer, wide-eyed. The firelight flickered in their gazes. But, the elder continued, the serpent was a jealous guardian. It asked only one thing, that we remember it. That its name be spoken at feasts, and its story sung in winters, and its gift honored with offerings. For as long as we remembered, the serpent slept in peace beneath the mountain. But people forget. They always forget. When harvests were good, they thanked the rains, the sun, the soil. They stopped naming the serpent. And the more they forgot, the more restless it grew. Until one day, it withdrew entirely, sinking into the deep earth. No one knew if it died, or merely dreamed. The elder's voice dropped to a whisper. Forgotten things are dangerous. They do not vanish, they wait. A forgotten guardian may wake as a curse. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind howled through the snowy eaves. Wigu sat silent, hands clasped in their lap. Every word the elder spoke rang true. In their dreams, they had seen the serpent coiled in fire, its great body wrapped around caverns of stone. They had felt its hunger not for food, but for memory. For recognition. For song. When the elder finished, the children huddled close to their mothers, and the villagers laughed uneasily, trying to shake off the shiver of old myth. But later that night, when the fire burned low and most had gone to sleep, Wigu stayed behind with the elder. Elder, Wigu whispered, I've heard its breath in the earth. I've seen the serpent's glow in my dreams. The elder's eyes narrowed. Their hands, knotted with age, gripped Wigu's shoulder. Then you must be careful, child. Such visions are not given lightly. If the serpent wakes, it will not rise as a gentle guardian. It will rise angry, burning, demanding what was lost. Wigu met the elder's gaze, unblinking. Then someone must remember. Someone must sing. The elder looked long into Wigu's twilight eyes. At last, they sighed. Perhaps that someone is you. And for the first time, Wigu felt the weight of a story pressing down upon them, not a story to listen to, but a story to carry. Chapter 4, Shadows in the Snow. Winter deepened until the valley seemed caught between silence and shadow. The snowdrifts rose taller than fences, and the river lay beneath a hard, glittering sheet. Only the smoke curling from chimneys reminded the villagers that life still stirred inside their homes. But Wigu noticed things others did not. At dawn, when the world was quietest, they walked the edge of the forest where snow clung heavy to pine branches. Their boots sank deep with every step, Yet the forest seemed to lean closer around them, as if listening. The birds had gone silent. Rabbits no longer left trails of prints across the drifts. Even the wolves, whose cries usually echoed through the hills, had fled. The earth itself had begun to tremble. Not always, just once or twice each day. But enough that the villagers began to mutter uneasily. Dishes rattled in cupboards, beams creaked in roofs, and the snow on the rooftops shivered loose in little avalanches. One morning, Wigu saw something stranger still. They had paused on a ridge above the frozen river when the snow beneath their feet quivered. Slowly, it split, just a hairline crack, running jagged down the slope. From within came a faint glow, as though embers smoldered deep under the ground. Wigu knelt, brushing snow from the crack with gloved hands. Heat touched their skin. Beneath the mountain's sleep, the Ash-Serpent was turning. That night, the villagers gathered again in the longhouse. Their voices were louder, edged with fear. The tremors are growing. My cellar wall has cracked. Something's wrong with the mountain. The elder raised their hands for quiet, but worry clung to the air like smoke. Then a farmer's wife spoke sharply, "It's that child's fault." Wigu. Ever since they started their talk of serpents and stars, the earth has not been still. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, uneasy. Others shook their heads, ashamed. Wigu sat near the fire, small and still, but their eyes glowed like the coals. "I did not cause this," Wigu said softly. Their voice was steady, carrying through the longhouse. "But I can hear it, even if you cannot. The serpent wakes. If we ignore it, the fire will not stop at cracks in the ground. It will rise." The villagers fell silent. Fear makes people hesitate between disbelief and dread. The elder cleared their throat. "We should prepare. Gather food, strengthen walls, be ready to flee if the mountain grows angrier." But Wigu shook their head. "Running will not help. The serpent does not want our homes. It wants to be remembered. It wants its story back." For a long time, no one spoke. Only the fire popped and hissed. Outside, the wind howled, and the snow fell thicker, blotting out the stars. Yet even through the storm, Wigu thought they heard it, a low rumble, deep in the bones of the mountain, like the growl of something vast rolling in its sleep. The serpent's shadow had begun to stretch over the valley. Chapter 5: Fire in the Valley. The night it happened, the valley was silent at first. Snow lay heavy on rooftops, glittering under a pale, watchful moon. Families slept, fires burned low, and the forest stood black and unmoving. Then the earth groaned. It began as a low hum, a sound that vibrated through bed frames and wooden beams. Dogs barked wildly, chickens clucked in panic, and children cried out in their sleep. The hum deepened into a roar, and suddenly the mountains split the night with thunder. The ground shook so hard that fences toppled and icicles shattered from eaves. Snow slid from the hillsides in choking waves. From deep within the mountain came a hiss, a long, burning exhale, like a forge roaring to life. Wigu had been awake. They ran into the snowy street barefoot, hair wild around their face, eyes fixed on the peak. From the summit rose a plume of smoke, black against the stars. But it was no ordinary smoke, it glowed faintly red, like the inside of a coal. The villagers poured into the streets, shouting in fear. "The mountain breaks. The earth is cursed. Run, run to the forest." And then it came, a figure vast and terrible, writhing from the cracked slope. Its body was stone and fire, scales like glowing obsidian, eyes burning with the light of magma. It uncoiled with a sound like boulders grinding together, each movement sending avalanches crashing down the mountainside. The Ash-Serpent had risen. Its head turned slowly, gaze falling toward the valley. Where it exhaled, the snow hissed and vanished, leaving blackened earth steaming beneath. The river ice cracked, spilling hot water that frothed and boiled. The villagers screamed, clutching children, stumbling through drifts as they fled. Some fell to their knees in prayer. Others cried out to the elder, who could only stand frozen in horror. But Wigu did not run. They walked forward, barefoot in the snow, until they stood at the edge of the square. Their breath steamed, their skin burned from the serpent's heat, but their eyes never left its great burning gaze. The Ash-Serpent lowered its head, smoke curling from its nostrils. Its voice rumbled like rock slides. Forgotten. Cast aside. You feasted on soil warmed by my fire, drank rivers carved by my body, and still you forgot. My name unspoken, my story untold. Why should I let you live? The villagers cowered. No one answered. Except Wigu. Lifting their chin, they spoke clearly, their voice small but steady against the roar. I have not forgotten. The serpent's eyes narrowed, flames licking along its jaw. One child's memory does not mend a valley's betrayal. Then let me remember for all of them, Wigu said. Their voice did not waver. I will carry your name. I will sing your story. Only do not burn what you once guarded. The Ash-Serpent studied them, fire dimming for a moment. Then it gave a long, rattling hiss. A bargain, then. Sing me into the world again, make me more than ash and shadow. If you fail, this valley will be cinders by dawn. The serpent's body coiled around the mountain, glowing brighter than the moon. The villagers fell silent, staring at Wigu, the strange child of mist and dream, who now stood as their only hope. Chapter 6. Wigu steps forward. The valley quivered under the serpent's heat. Smoke poured down the slopes like rivers of ash, and the villagers huddled together, clutching children, whispering prayers. Yet no prayer could reach the ears of a forgotten guardian. Only Wigu moved. They stepped out from the frightened crowd, bare feet sinking into wet snow. Steam rose where the serpent's heat licked the ground, and each step burned, but Wigu did not stop. Their twilight hair blew in the hot wind, and their eyes, wide and steady, reflected the fire of the serpent's gaze. Wigu, no, the elder cried, voice hoarse with fear. You cannot face it. But Wigu only glanced back once. I must. The serpent lowered its massive head until it loomed above the child, eyes like molten stone. Its breath scorched the air, curling Wigu's cloak into smoke. Why do you not flee? The serpent rumbled, its voice echoing across the valley. Why do you not beg for mercy, as the others do? Because you are not a monster, Wigu said. Their voice trembled from the heat, but not from fear. You are a story. You are a guardian. And I will not let you vanish into anger. The serpent hissed, steam bursting from its jaws. A story? I am flame and stone. I am hunger. I am wrath. I was forgotten, what else can I be now but fire? You can be remembered, Wigu said simply. The serpent drew back, as if struck by the words. Its body shifted, scales cracking, molten light seeping from the fissures. The mountain groaned with its movement, rocks tumbling down its slopes. Words are nothing, it said. Memory fades. Songs are swallowed by time. Then I will not let them fade, Wigu answered. They placed a hand on the scorched earth, as if to steady themselves. I will carry your name in every breath, in every dream. I will weave you into the world again. The serpent's burning eyes narrowed. For a long moment, it only stared, the valley holding its breath. Then it spoke, low and rumbling, like thunder rolling in the belly of the earth. Very well. But memory alone is not enough. You must sing me not as I am, but as I was. Sing of my fire, my rivers, my gift to this valley. Sing me into truth, not wrath. If you falter, your village will be ash by sunrise. The villagers gasped. The elder clutched their staff, whispering, it cannot be done. But Wigu's face glowed with quiet resolve. I will sing. The serpent's coils tightened around the mountain, fire flaring in its chest. Then step forward, child of mists. Sing, and let us see if your voice can carry the weight of a forgotten god. The wind shifted, carrying heat and smoke, but also silence, the kind of silence that waits, heavy and expectant, for the first note of a song. And Wigu, standing alone before the guardian of fire, drew in a long, steady breath. Chapter 7. The Bargain of Memory. The serpent's body glowed like a river of molten stone, coils draped around the mountain as though it were a throne. The heat rolled across the valley in waves, forcing the villagers to their knees. But at the center of the square, Wigu stood tall, their small frame outlined by firelight. The Ash-Serpent's voice rumbled again. Begin, child. Sing my story back into the world. Bind me with memory. Fail, and I will drown this valley in fire until even ash forgets you. The The villagers clung to one another, watching with wide, fearful eyes. No one dared speak. Only the elder whispered faintly, "Wigu, be strong." Wigu closed their eyes. Their heart pounded, but it was not fear that filled them. It was the weight of knowing that all of it, the stars' whispers, the serpent's dreams, the elder's warnings, had led to this moment. They opened their mouth, and their voice rose. At first, it was soft, trembling like a candle flame. They sang of stone cracking open to let rivers flow, of the mountain's fire warming the frozen soil so seeds could take root. Their song wound upward, steadying as it grew, until it was no longer a child's voice, but something older, fuller, as if the valley itself sang through them. The serpent shifted, scales glowing brighter. Its breath came slower, listening. "You remember," it murmured. Wigu lifted their arms as the song deepened. They sang of the serpent's gift, the fertile valley, the warmth of springs, the way its fire carved the land so people could live and thrive. They named the Ash-Serpent not as a curse, but as a guardian, as the first builder of their home. The song rose higher, echoing against the mountainsides. The villagers felt it in their bones, their fear loosening. Some wept quietly, others bowed their heads, ashamed of the forgetting that had brought such wrath. The serpent swayed, smoke curling from its jaws. Its eyes, still burning, softened with something almost like sorrow. "So long," it rumbled. "So long since I was spoken of in this way." But the fire did not die. The ground still quaked. The serpent's gaze sharpened. "One song cannot mend centuries of silence. Do you swear, child, that you will carry me? That you will teach them all, again and again, until even death cannot erase my name?" Wigu's throat burned from singing, but their voice did not falter. They pressed a hand to their chest and nodded. "I swear. I will carry you, as long as I draw breath. And when I am gone, I will leave your song behind me, so others may carry it too." The serpent's body trembled, scales cracking with bursts of light. Its fiery breath roared toward the sky, scattering sparks like stars. The villagers fell to the ground, shielding their faces, certain the end had come. But Wigu did not move. They lifted their voice higher, weaving the oath into their song. And slowly, the serpent began to calm. Its coils loosened around the mountain. The glow of its body dimmed from white-hot to ember-red. The roar of fire faded into a deep, heavy sigh. The bargain had been struck. Chapter 8. The Song of Creation. The serpent's coils rested along the mountain slopes, glowing like veins of living fire. Its breath came slow and heavy, waiting. The air quivered with heat, but also with something new, anticipation. "Sing, child," the serpent rumbled. "Sing not only of what I was, but of what I gave. Remake me in memory. Weave me back into the valley." Wigu closed their eyes. Snow melted beneath their feet, water running in rivulets around their toes, but they felt none of it. They reached deep into the place where dreams lived, where stars whispered and rivers carried voices, and let the song rise. At first, it was gentle, a hum that rippled across the valley like a breeze through tall grass. Then words began to take shape, carried on the hum. Wigu sang of fire bursting from stone, not as destruction but as birth. They sang of mountains rising like guardians, their roots sinking into the world's heart. The villagers, crouched in fear moments before, slowly raised their heads. The song washed over them like warmth after cold. Their eyes widened, and many wept. It was as if they, too, remembered, though they had never heard such a story before. Wigu's voice grew stronger. They sang of rivers carving their way through the earth, carrying life wherever they flowed. They sang of soil made rich by ash, of crops growing tall, of orchards heavy with fruit. Every note seemed to paint the valley anew, filling it with the memory of the serpent's gift. The serpent lifted its head, eyes glimmering. "Yes," it hissed softly. "This is the truth of me. This is the fire I gave." And Wigu sang on. Their voice soared higher, threading through the night, weaving with the stars. They sang not just of what was, but of what could be, of a bond renewed, of people who would not forget, of balance between fire and soil, story and silence. The serpent's body blazed, brighter than the moon. But it was no longer the blaze of wrath, it was creation's fire, the glow of something remembered, cherished, alive again. The villagers felt the trembling in the ground still, but it no longer terrified them. It was like the heartbeat of the valley, steady and strong. When Wigu's song finally faded, silence fell. But it was not the silence of fear. It was reverence, thick and full, as though even the mountains held their breath. The serpent bowed its massive head, lowering it until its burning eyes met Wigu's. "You have given me back my name. You have bound me not with chains, but with story. This valley will live, because you remembered." A deep crack split the earth at the serpent's feet, but instead of fire and smoke, a glowing trail of black stone spread outward, curling down the mountainside toward the valley. It shimmered faintly, warm under the falling snow. The serpent's body began to fade, its fire sinking back into the ground, leaving the black stone glowing like a path in the dark. The villagers gasped, some falling to their knees, others pressing hands to their hearts. And Wigu, breathless, stood in the center of it all, knowing the song had changed not only the serpent but the valley itself. Chapter 9: The Trail of Black Stone. When the serpent finally sank into the earth, the valley held its breath. The once blazing mountain slopes now glowed faintly with a trail of black stone, winding like a ribbon from the peak to the village below. Steam rose from the stones, but there was no longer the roar of fire, only warmth, quiet and steady. The villagers stepped cautiously into the snow, drawn toward the glowing path. Some touched it with trembling hands. It was neither cold nor sharp, but smooth, alive with the memory of the serpent's fire. Even in the fading night, the stones pulsed faintly, as though breathing. The elder knelt by the trail, fingers brushing the blackened stone. "It is a gift," they whispered. "A reminder that what is forgotten may yet return, if we remember." Children ran along the path, laughing, leaving footprints that glimmered briefly in the black stone. The villagers began to gather closer to Wigu, who had been standing silently, eyes following the last coil of the serpent sinking into the mountain. "You did it," the elder said, voice thick with awe. "You reminded it. You reminded us all." Wigu looked down the trail of black stone, and then back at the villagers. "Not just me," they said softly. "All of us must remember. Every year, every story, every song. Otherwise," their gaze turned to the mountain, where the faint glow of embers pulsed beneath the snow, "it will wake again." The villagers nodded, understanding at last. This was no mere tale, it was their duty, their inheritance. And Wigu, once the lonely child of mists and whispers, had become the keeper of that memory. From that night onward, the trail of black stone became sacred. People walked it, sang along it, left offerings, and told stories of the serpent's fire. Travelers who ventured into the valley spoke of the strange path of glowing stone, and of the child who had saved the village not with sword or shield, but with song. Yet Wigu did not linger. They knew their work was not done. Forgotten things were many, and the world was full of echoes waiting to be remembered. But the trail of black stone remained behind, a gift to the valley, a proof that even the fiercest fire could be calmed with memory and song. And every night, when the stars whispered above, the villagers swore they could hear the faintest echo of Wigu's voice carrying through the air, a reminder that stories could hold life itself. Chapter 10: The Keeper of Forgotten Things. Winter loosened its grip, and spring crept into the valley. Snow melted into streams, buds appeared on trees, and the air carried the first sense of new life. The villagers rebuilt what the fire had threatened, repairing homes and fields, but always leaving space for the trail of black stone, which pulsed faintly like the heartbeat of the valley itself. Wigu walked among them, but not always within the village. They wandered the forests, climbed the hills, and followed the rivers, listening to the whispers of stars, the hum of earth, and the murmur of hidden streams. Wherever something was forgotten, an old spring, a hidden grove, a tale lost to time, Wigu would find it, remember it, and sing it back into the world. The villagers never forgot Wigu, either. They told stories of the child who had faced fire and song, who had spoken to the serpent and tamed its wrath. Children grew up hearing the name Wigu, passing it down like a charm against forgetting. Even when Wigu vanished into misty valleys or distant hills, the people would follow the trail of memory, feeling the warmth of the black stone underfoot. Yet Wigu did not linger to be praised. Their heart was restless, driven by the knowledge that forgetting was endless. They became a keeper of forgotten things, wandering across the land, singing stories to bring life back to what had been lost. Sometimes, on quiet nights, villagers would glimpse a shadow moving along the edge of the forest, or a figure walking barefoot across a misty hilltop. They would smile and whisper, "Wigu walks tonight." And somewhere, carried on the wind, the faintest melody could be heard, a song of fire, of mountains, of rivers, of life remembered. A song that would never be forgotten again. For Wigu, the child of mists, had learned the greatest truth, that memory and song could hold even the fiercest flames, and that stories, once spoken and carried, could outlast time itself. And so the valley endured, safe in the glow of memory, warmed by the song of the forgotten guardian, and watched over by Wigu, the eternal keeper of forgotten things.